China is growing rapidly. In the coming years, some 200 million houses will have to be built in rural areas. If they use bricks, it will take 25% of the top layer of the agricultural land and half of the coal reserves to make the bricks. China has a serious problem. Ford Motor Company also had a problem. What do you do when you have been making cars for 80 years and your production site has become one of the largest and most polluted industrial areas in the world? What is Nike to do when they have spread so many shoes over the world that they start to become a waste problem? A textile manufacturer has a problem if its waste is seen as chemically dangerous and the government prohibits dumping or burning. In fact, we all have a problem. How are we to deal with rapidly growing economies, with a pattern of high consumption, with falling raw material reserves, and with mountains of waste? It seems like economic madness.
If you look at the waste, it's really a very bad business proposition. Because why should anybody make anything that has no value or has a cost? So I think the fundamental transformation will actually occur because of economic forces. It won't be because of some moral issue or some technical revelation. It'll be because waste is basically stupid.
An American architect and a German chemist are unleashing an industrial revolution that will sweep through industry as an ecological storm in the coming years. They base their ideas on the example of nature, where waste is no problem because waste is food, food for growth. In the Rhine Valley in Switzerland, there is an old textile factory, Rona. In the early 90s, the company was faced with the choice: move or come up with a solution for their waste problem. The former CEO, Albin Kalin, had no idea how to solve that problem.
We want to try to solve the waste problem, get rid of the waste in a more adequate way. We wanted to use the waste that we produced at the mill. We wanted to burn that at the mill to save oil. And the officials came and they said, "You're not allowed to do this." And we have made a lot of studies, and there was just a dead-end road for us.
Their textile waste was regarded as hazardous chemical waste. A colleague of Kalin knew an American designer, architect, William McDonough, who perhaps had a solution. Kalin had him come over and picked him up from the airport.
And during this drive from Zurich Airport to Herbrook, where the mill was located, William McDonough told me waste equals food. And it made click. If we can make our waste to be food, we can solve all the problems.
Make the waste completely harmless for man, plant and animal. In other words, make the textile fully biodegradable. That was the solution. But how can you achieve that with the synthetic fibers and the very toxic dyes used by Rona? On the advice of the American designer, Kalin asked the German chemist Michael Braungart to look at these problems.
And I was really very nervous, because Michael Braungart had a Greenpeace history. And as industrialist I was, to let someone, a former Greenpeace activist, into the mill, you don't feel so easy.
Braungart may have been a Greenpeace activist, but he also happened to be the best ecological chemist in the world. There began a search for strong natural fibres. They chose a mix of cotton and rami, a very tough plant fibre. But the toxicity of the dyes proved to be an almost insuperable problem.
And we tried to contact all dye chemical manufacturers around the world, and we wanted that they present all the details of environmental safe products, and all of them said, we are not going to work with you. We are not going to open our books.
In the end, they found the chemical company Ciba-Geigy prepared to cooperate with them. A search began among 1,600 different dyes. They found only 16 dyes that were completely harmless, but with them they could create any required colour. Rhoda was now able to manufacture high-quality compostable textiles, used among other things for covering airplane seats. Rona's problem was solved. From the textile waste, the factory makes felt that is sold to local farmers. They use it to cover their strawberry plants in the winter. The felt decomposes completely and thus becomes food for the plants. The problem of waste water from the factory was solved at the same time. It now comes out of the factory cleaner than it goes in. Kalin was convinced. He became a committed fan of the German chemist and the American designer.
It changed my life. Really changed my life. Because it's such an easy solution. And no one actually thought of it before in this way. And I have been discussing it with a lot of people before, with technicians, engineers, people from other industries, and they're all stuck in the dead-end road. And this, for me, this was the solution.
The story of Rona begins in New York. William McDonough is a designer and architect. In 1991, he had to build a crèche, and he wanted to avoid toxic construction materials. Someone said that he should have a word with the German chemist Michael Brancard.
I had heard about him as the most important ecological toxicologist that I could meet.
Yeah, when I first met Bill McDonough, it was when I was opening an office of my institute in New York.
So I went to the opening party.
Bill McDonough came half hour earlier.
I was the first one there.
We had a real nice place in the East Village.
We sat on a rooftop above Greenwich Village in New York, looking down on the street at the taxis and up at the skyscrapers.
And we opened the office, and all the European community from companies like AXO or DSM from the Netherlands, etc., they passed by and came in.
And we started talking, and we talked the whole party through. I think he ignored everybody else.
And basically I missed the whole opening because I was talking only to him.
And we stayed till it was dark. And
all the people came by from UNICEF or United Nations and said hello. And I said, hello, good. And I continued talking to Bill McDonough because it was so interesting in talking to him and sharing ideas, etc.
I just started to imagine, what if the vehicles were different? What if the bottles that we drank out of were different? What if our shoes were different? What if our clothes were different? What if the buildings were different? What would it all look like? And we just started imagining the future.
McDonough and Braungart have become inseparable. Together, they set up a company for intelligent product systems.
When I first said waste equals food, we were talking about the overall approach to what he called intelligent product system. And the intelligent product system says that everything in biology should go back to soil safely and be healthy. So the waste of a system that would go back to soil, like this may not get recycled, but this could be compostable, right? That should be safe and healthy. So waste equals food.
We are the only ones who take materials and put them into landfills. So we make waste. And even when we try to minimize waste, like zero emissions or zero waste, we still accept the concept of waste. Yeah? So what we do is we eliminate the concept of waste. Yeah? For us, we design everything that it's a nutrient, yeah? And either for biological system or for technical system. So it's beneficial. So we look at a cherry tree in spring and say, look, what a waste of energy, what a waste of materials. But every material of this cherry tree is beneficial. Every material becomes a nutrient, goes back in a biological cycle. And the more blossoms from the cherry tree are there, the better it is. So we generate systems which are beneficial. And in this case, we say waste equals food. Yeah? Not like McDonald's, where food equals waste. Yeah? It is different. We go there and look that every material is beneficial. Yeah? And so that the more waste we have, waste in brackets, the better it is. Yeah? So it's not about like clean or production or that. Yeah? Nature is only productive when it's dirty, when it's sludge. Yeah? When the more sludge, the better. Yeah, not clean, not Mr. Clean, not this American housewife perspective of the early 50s. Yeah, to make it all clean. No, it's only productive when it really generates space and life for the others.
Ja, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, wir stellen...
At a recent press conference, Mr. Grupp, director of the German clothing manufacturer Trigema, proudly announced his latest product. Michael Braungart developed fully compostable, toxin-free T-shirts for him. The T-shirts are a typical product of the Braungart and McDonough philosophy. When designing a product, bear in mind that one day it will be thrown away, and make sure that it then becomes raw material for a new product. The compostable T-shirts are raw material for nature, the biosphere. Materials that don't decompose should become food for the technosphere, all the technical products around us. The book, Cradle to Cradle, in which Braungart and McDonough explain their ideas, is a good example of a product that can be reused in the technosphere. The book is made of plastic and is therefore waterproof. It is printed with ink that washes off if you heat it. The plastic can be remelted to make new books. That sounds like ordinary recycling, but there is a subtle difference.
Well, we don't really recycle products. That's the problem. We downcycle products. Products typically lose their quality as they go through recycling. They're not recycled, they're downcycled. So typically what would happen is something like this would become plastic wood, or some park bench or flower pot or something on its way to a landfill or an incinerator. So it's losing its quality as it goes. What we're looking at is things that are truly recycled, so they go back to their condition, or come back to the system and actually get upcycled, where if it's a suboptimal material, if the inks aren't ideal or the additives aren't perfect, we can actually purify the product when it comes back through the system. Like if you look at a plastic bottle for water, it has antimony, a carcinogenic heavy metal, as a residue from catalytic reaction. Well, we could take out the antimony when it comes back and make it better, so it upcycles, rather than put it in a park bench and mess it up with other chemicals and then burn it. So it's a subtle distinction.
The ideas of Braungart and McDonough sound almost utopian, but they are taken very seriously by major manufacturers. In Beaverton, a suburb of Portland, lies the Nike World Campus, the headquarters of Nike Worldwide. John Hoke is Nike's head of shoe design. He has taken the message to heart. You don't eat shoes, but they do wear out and come into the biosphere.
Well, I think we have to think about the chemical compounds of the product itself, because the theory would be that as you're using the shoe, it's eliminating and rubbing off the material and then getting into the ground, and worms are eating it. And so I think we have to start with the chemical makeup of all the materials that we had, And so from there, I think we'd think about the design for disassembly at some point, where you can collect the product back and reclaim every single aspect of the shoe and every piece of material, and then reuse that in some way to create new product. We have to go back to the source vendors and tell them our goal is that this material is to be food for something somewhere, and so reducing and eliminating all the toxics.
Nike takes the waste equals food concept seriously and has set itself a goal: no more waste by 2020. A first step is their Reuse a Shoe program. On a modest scale, Nike has begun to take back used shoes. The rubber is cut from the shoes and reused.
The design for disassembly would be key, because once we take the shoes back, making the design easy to take apart and to get back to its componentry and raw materials is a big constraint.
The soles become a kind of rubber granulate that is used as a top layer for running tracks, tennis and basketball courts. But that is just a start. The ultimate aim is that all the waste from the shoes should become raw material again for new shoes. Fully recyclable shoes that do not pollute, that is the goal. Nike has recently introduced a product that is heading in the right direction.
We are proud of a shoe line we call Nike Considered, and Considered design is a philosophy of design that asks our design staff to look at the entire life cycle of a shoe and design with less toxics, using the power of geometry over chemistry, using more natural fibers and materials that are recyclable or farmed products. And Nike Considered is been in the marketplace for a bit, has done very well for us. The consumers seem to like it. I happen to be wearing a shoe right here, and I will just talk a little bit about what the shoe does and why we're so proud of it. As I mentioned, it is a considered product, so you can see on the inside of the shoe itself, it's just one piece of leather with no foaming, no backing. We've tried to reduce as many toxics as possible out of the product. It uses raw natural hemps and materials to create the upper itself. And one of the most powerful things about this considered opportunity is that we've reduced as much as possible all the adhesives. And so typically a glue adhesive puts the outsole onto the shoe itself. In this case, we've studied geometry and created a powerful geometry that snap fits the outsole to the upper itself. And this is stitched down with a thread, so we're eliminating as many adhesives as we possibly can. And so the inside itself, from a disassembly perspective, if I were to take this whole thing apart, this just snaps into two units, the inside unit and the outside unit. The threads are taken off, and this goes right back into a stream of materials that can be used for a post-secondary life.
This all sounds great, but can you make a normal, profitable product in this way?
I think we can, yes. I think that the waste is food principle is, again, it's a very provocative idea. I think it's not just an idea of design and creation, it's an idea of business, that there is a limit to raw materials, that we recognize that, and as we assemble new products, thinking about the business proposition of how you can use products and raw materials on products for a certain lifetime and then have those raw materials turn into something else is a profit engine.
McDonough and Braungart visualize a world in which literally all the waste is food for the biosphere or the technosphere. In that way, we'll no longer have to feel guilty about consumption and the resulting waste. After all, there'll be no more waste.
Yeah, we celebrate abundance. We can throw things away, we can litter, we can enjoy littering, we can use materials back into cycles. Right now we lose about 4,000 to 6,000 times more topsoil than we rebuild, because our agriculture doesn't work, it doesn't rebuild soil. Our ways, we take things and we don't put them back into biological cycles anymore. So what we say, no, let's be productive and be happy to have materials to go back. But everything is a nutrient. So the more materials we have, the more we waste, in brackets, the better it is for the others. Like we developed, for example, for Unilever, which is a Dutch company, an ice cream packaging which is not just biodegradable. Biodegradable is just the minimum. I am biodegradable, you are biodegradable. But so what? That's just the minimum, like sustainable. But there it starts. This ice cream packaging this film is a liquid at room temperature. It's only a film when it's frozen. When you take it out of the freezer, rip it off and you throw it away. It becomes a liquid within hours, and it degrades within hours. But it's not only biodegradable, it contains seeds from rare plants. So when you throw it away, you generate life, like the others as well. All the songbirds, etc., they take the seeds and all the berries, and they generate life by that. And all their excrements and materials as well generate life. Only we take things and don't give anything back.
Well, as an architect, I come from the larger scale production. Michael, as a chemist, comes from very small scale production. So you put the two of us together, and our work can range from the molecule up to regional and city planning and everything in between. So, I design factories where this kind of work gets done, and we try and solar power them and cover them with photosynthetic materials. And we like to see a building like a tree, where it makes oxygen and sequesters carbon, fixes nitrogen, distills water, purifies the air, changes colors with the seasons, creates microclimates. Why wouldn't you want to do that too?
Producing and consuming without waste. Buildings that imitate nature. Who wouldn't want that? McDonough has now become famous. He was presented with an award by Bill Clinton, and Time magazine called him a hero for the planet. His true to nature and energy-friendly buildings attract worldwide attention.
This one over here, for example, produces more energy than it needs to operate. These are solar collectors on the roof, and this is a waste treatment plant that uses natural systems for the water treatment. So the sun shines on this roof, you can see it here again, and then it causes more energy over the course of a year than the building needs, along with the solar collectors in the parking lot. And then the wastewater is taken through this greenhouse into this pond and purified. So the building is like a tree.
Close to Lake Michigan, you'll find the factories of Herman Miller. For decades, the company has been one of the world's best-known manufacturers of design furniture. Some of their designs have already been included in museum collections. Herman Miller is one of the top companies in Fortune magazine's list of the 100 best companies. In the early 90s, McDonough designed their assembly hall. People called the building the Greenhouse, and it was immediately a resounding success. It is a building in which daylight dominates and natural air circulation replaces air conditioning. From the very first day, the new building had a noticeable effect on workers.
In their old plant, it wasn't a great environment, and we actually had more than our fair share of general industrial relations problems in that plant. And you always wonder, well, what's going on? Why was that plant particularly difficult? When we brought the folks into this building, into the greenhouse, they responded amazingly well to it. Put simply, the building respects the people who are inside it. They became positive, more productive, we have less absenteeism, and indeed we bring all our customers through this building and we actually take them out onto the production floor and let them meet the people working out there because they are just so positive. And it's a great example of when you build a building that really respects individuals, gives them light, gives them the space, gives them the air quality they need, they respond doubly in terms of their commitment to the organization.
McDonough's philosophy is not limited to the inside of the building. In his vision, a building must not conflict with nature, but form a part of it. The wastewater goes to pools on the site, where there is plenty of room for plants and animals. In the United States, it has become the standard for green buildings. McDonough also managed to persuade Herman Miller to take a closer look at their products. The company now makes chairs according to the cradle-to-cradle concept, the strict production protocol of McDonough and Brancott.
This chair is one good example. It's called the Mira, and the Mira is a chair that was really the first product that used the cradle-to-cradle protocol. It's a product that's easily disassembled. We actually evaluated all the various materials in this chair, and I think there's only a couple materials in here that still have the red designation, which means that there's still something wrong with them in a environmental sense, and some of that could be, let's say, a recycled steel part. It might have chrome in it yet, so that would make it red, and not much you can do about that. But things like this plastic bag, we actually had the supplier of this plastic take out the materials that were harmful to the environment, and even though it's still this flexible, we took out the things that were not so kind to the environment that also made it flexible. We just used the more natural ones.
The cradle-to-cradle protocol is characterized by strict requirements. Are the materials completely safe for man and animal? Can the materials be reused in the biosphere or the technosphere? Can the product be disassembled quickly and easily?
Interesting, yes. The chair comes completely apart. It takes about 15 minutes for one person, and there isn't a joint or a place where it's actually assembled that takes longer than 15 seconds. So each part can come apart, and there are a few pieces like this arm pad that is a mixture, and that mixture can also come apart very quickly and very easily for disassembly into its various component parts and peel the foam off. And so again, nothing more than 15 seconds for the chair to come apart. So it makes it easy then to capture those materials for their next life, as the name cradle to cradle implies.
When you think about it clearly, part of our criteria for a cradle to cradle product is that it can be disassembled quickly. Actually, disassembling something quickly saves us lots of money, right? Much more effective, and actually makes it easier to assemble it in the first place. So these criteria don't just become a burden to your business, they actually become an enabler of a better product and a more effective product for us.
The cradle-to-cradle protocol sounds like design for sustainability, but it is much more wide-ranging.
Yeah, sustainability is not enough for us. Yeah? Because if I would ask you, how is your relationship with your girlfriend, yeah, and you would say, sustainable, yeah, then I would say, oh, Rob, I'm so sorry for you, yeah. If this is the key thing, sustainability, yeah, then it's just the minimum, yeah. You can somehow deal with it, yeah. It's just maintenance, yeah. No, sustainability is the minimum, and from there it starts.
Our design assignment has two characteristics. One is an emotional one, and one is a technical one. Our emotional one is how do we design systems that love all the children of all species for all time. And that's a very emotional connection. It's about love and in celebration of the natural world and the accrual of more and more species, not the destruction of species.
And I think it's time that people can become native to this planet, yeah? That they can say, hey, isn't it good that I'm here? Yeah? And we can make the other species on this planet happy that we are here. Yeah? And so this means we develop things which are not less bad, but which are good for the others, yeah? Which are supportive, which generate more life than just being less bad. Yeah? Less bad means that we are defining environmental protection like destroying it less, yeah? Like to say, oh, I don't use my car today, so I'm protecting the environment. There's no protection with that. Yeah? It's an abuse of the term protection, yeah? Because to destroy a little less doesn't protect anything.
The goal is very simple and technical, and the goal is a delightfully diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, soil, water, and power, economically, equitably, ecologically, and elegantly enjoyed. Period.
Beside the River Rouge in Detroit lies one of the largest and oldest industrial sites in the world, the Ford Rouge Center, the home base of the Ford Motor Company. This is where the first Ford rolled from the production line. Cars have been built there for 80 years. For 80 years, there was no consideration for the environment, nature, and the river. There was enormous pollution, and Ford was faced with the choice: either abandon the site or redevelop it. Bill Ford decided to overhaul the industrial site. It had to become cleaner. He was advised to go and talk to Bill McDonough.
I've heard Bill Ford tell the story that he was reluctant to do so. You know, you get introduced to a lot of people that supposedly have the magic solution to these issues. And so they just set a 30-minute meeting to get acquainted with one another. Largely, you know, I'm sure he thought it was going to be a courtesy meeting. Well, that 30-minute meeting turned into several hours and ultimately turned into the assignment to apply his theories to the Ford Rouge Center.
Well, when I met Bill Ford, it was more that he convinced himself than I convinced him. He was already prepared to look for a way to do something positive. The commission to do the River Rouge, which is a $2 billion project with a 20-year schedule, was given to me in public without my knowledge. And I think it was because that way the company was committed to it, and I was committed to it, and even though it looked impossible, we just were stuck, you know, and so we had to produce shareholder value or we were both in trouble. So that was the assignment, and that's what we did.
Construction began on the renovation of the Rouge Center in 2000.
Today we're unveiling the Heritage Project, the environmental renovation of the Rouge. The goal of the Heritage Project is to transform the icon of 20th century manufacturing into the model of 21st century sustainable manufacturing.
The site was renovated at a cost of $2 billion, according to the ideas of Braungart and McDonough, ideas that people at Ford were not used to.
You know, I was really, honestly, emotionally moved by Bill and Michael. You know, when you first meet them, you know, they look a little kooky. You know, certainly due to an American businessman. You know, I met Bill McDonough, and he's heard this story before. He was wearing a bow tie and a cape and a beret, and you know, it's not at all what you meet in a very, you know, this is how we look at Ford Motor Company. And he was an architect from the University of Virginia, and Michael was this chemist from Germany that used to be in Greenpeace. So, you know, your initial reaction is, of course, you know, these guys are nothing but trouble, and they're going to be, you know, oh my God, why do I have to work with them? Bill's objective for us was, we want this to be a site where you would be happy to have your children play. Now, you know, in the beginning, we didn't even know how to deal with this. What the heck kind of an objective is that? How do we measure it? Does that make any sense? But as I began to think about it, I said to myself, you know, I have kids, and I would say, no, I don't want my children to play here. And my guess is virtually any parent would give that same answer. Well, now I've got a site with wetlands, green space, wildlife, honeybees, and I think I could take the same parents, including me, and ask them the same question and get a yes answer. So in reality, that was a business-like objective, and it was measurable. We didn't think of it that way when we first heard about it.
The Rouge site was transformed into a kind of industrial nature park, just like Herman Miller's. The wastewater from the whole site is purified naturally. Use is made of sun energy. The new factory was built with many windows to allow daylight in. The whole production process has been cleaned up, and attention is paid to all waste flows. The roof of the new production hall is one big meadow, covered with sedum that purifies the rainwater and provides the birds with a new home. All very fine and natural, but most business managers will see it as an exaggerated form of eco-luxury.
Well, that's because they see it as a cost. They presume that each one of these things adds to the cost of regular production and that they're just icing on a cake or a cake instead of bread, and that's utopian. But it's not, because if you look at our production facility for Ford Motor Company, we saved Ford $35 million doing it this way.
What we found is if you think about it in the design stage, you can come up with environmental programs that actually save you money, they don't cost you money. So let's take the green roof as an example. Now, it costs money to put a green roof on top of a truck plant, but it actually will save us many times the cost of putting it on there. It will double the useful life of the roof because it will protect the roof from UV degradation, which causes leaks. Re-roofing a 10.5-acre roof is a several million-dollar job, so it will save us money there. It saves us money on heating and cooling costs because it insulates the plant from the extremes of hot and cold. And it saves us money in regulatory costs because it absorbs stormwater that we would otherwise have to take to a chemical treatment plant before we could discharge it to the nearby river. Instead, we're letting nature do what nature does. That stormwater today is now absorbed in the green roof, and it is naturally filtered before it ever gets to the Rouge River. So it's saving us really millions of dollars as opposed to costing us anything. And that's just one example.
If utopianism is profitable business, then I guess this is utopian.
That's what's inspirational about it. I mean, the world's full of dreamers. I don't have any time for dreamers. I have time for people that are inspirational and have thought through the real issues that you have to deal with as a business and have developed a formula to successfully navigate that challenge.
Ford also involved McDonough and Braungart in the development of a completely new car, a car powered by hydrogen, with seats filled with soya foam and tires of maize plastic. The car is to be made entirely from biodegradable materials or technical materials that can be used again as raw materials.
In the business future I can imagine, that vehicle has a value in the future. Its components can be reused, either reconfigured to a different kind of vehicle or reapplied in some other business, maybe not our business. That is not how vehicles are built today. I build you a vehicle, I hope it lasts a few years. After a few years, you and I have to figure out what we're going to do with that vehicle. We're probably going to send it to a scrapyard or a landfill or something of that nature. So it has no value. And I have to go out and buy more stuff and build another new vehicle. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's a lot of valuable stuff in there. There was a statistic that we found when we were looking at the Rouge project. Today it takes 50,000 pounds of raw materials to make a 3,000-pound car. That's a lot of waste. And we can change that. Why don't we use 3,000 pounds of material to build a 3,000-pound car? It'll cost an awful lot less. There'll be a lot less environmental problems. I'll be happy, my customer will be happy. I think this is a philosophy that is going to affect every industry. And we're going to, by the way, make a lot of money on this. This makes business sense, and that's one of the things that most impressed me about Bill and Michael. I've listened to any number of thinkers and writers on the subject of sustainability, which is often described as the triple bottom line of social, environmental, and economic performance. But almost every one of them, after they articulate that triple bottom line, talk exclusively about the environmental component. A few talk about the social component. Almost none of them have bothered to figure out how to make business sense out of sustainability. That's what is unique about Bill and Michael.
In 2006, a meeting takes place in Beijing Hotel between an American delegation and representatives of the Chinese government and industry. The meeting is behind closed doors, and only Chinese state television is allowed to film.
China and the United States will continue to work together to promote rural development through technological cooperation. Government officials, entrepreneurs, and scholars from the two countries have praised the efforts made in water safety, energy saving, and waste disposal.
The meeting is also attended by Madame Deng Nan, daughter of the former Chinese President Deng Xiaoping. The subject, working out the ideas of McDonough and Braungart.
China's new countryside development is a state-initiated project aimed at increasing overall agricultural productivity, building a harmonious society, and reducing disparities between urban and rural areas. And that's it for this edition of China Today. Stay tuned for weather forecast. I'm Zhang Ling. From me and all of the team here in Beijing, thanks for watching and bye for now.
China is looking very hard at environmental issues because they're in a complete crisis there. I mean, so they have all of the different situations of human experience. They have the most destructive events going on, and they have some of the most hopeful events going on, and the entire range in between. So the president of China has called for a circular economy, and as part of that call for circular economy, it calls for cradle-to-cradle thinking. It's national policy in the new 5-year plan. It means that materials are in closed cycles, and that come back, and that waste equals food, and that systems are designed so that they're safe and healthy and circle in the economy and come back and go out and come back and go out, and that people are fed and the soils are kept and the economy can continue because the materials and energy are in closed cycles. So it means renewable energy, it means safe materials, it means new production process.
Madame Deng Nan is associated with the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology. She knows McDonough very well, and the Chinese president, Yin Tao, is a supporter of Braungart and McDonough. Their book has become the Chinese handbook for the circular economy. The American delegation from Beijing to the village of Huangbaiyou. There, the festive opening is to take place of a number of model houses designed by McDonough and Braungart and built with cheap, completely recyclable materials.
China represents one of the biggest issues in the world today because 400 million people will be in new housing in the next 12 years. That would be like rebuilding the entire infrastructure of housing in the United States in 7 years. That's how big this is. And if they used brick to build, which is a conventional building material, they would need to destroy their soils, probably 25% of their farmland, and burn a lot of coal to fire the brick. So we have two project types that we're doing right now at scale. One is 6 new cities, developing conceptual master plans for cradle-to-cradle cities. And the other is developing new building materials, like this one over here, to build the cities without using brick, and highly insulated, low embodied energy, low energy use technique.
开始鸣礼炮 Please first salute the guns and to
The experimental houses in Huangbaiyou are built of material consisting of 2 layers of compressed sand or other fine material mixed with a strong binding agent. This replaces bricks and concrete. Between them is compressed straw or a reusable kind of polystyrene foam. Inside, simple luxury. Estimated building costs, approximately 6,000 euros, a sum that it should be possible for the average rural Chinese to raise, they think.
这么
Is it too expensive? It might be possible now for us farmers if we build a new house ourselves. It also costs 60,000 to 70,000 yuan. I like this new house, so you don't find it too expensive? It's too expensive for ordinary people, but we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. That is not yet known. However, the garden walls are still made of old-fashioned concrete, and the gardens are small for occupants who are used to growing their own food in their gardens. The houses are the only experimental beginning of a great Chinese adventure. In fact, the program includes complete cradle-to-cradle cities.
Well, China, in its last 2 5-year plans, was focused on industrialization and the building of its cities to take the rural population that was moving to the cities and to industrialize and develop its market economy. So we're doing these demonstration projects. For example, here in Jinan, this is taking a degraded site that has been downwind of various things that have polluted it, and then rebuilding that site into an eco-city here. Now, the idea of restoring the landscape is critical, because if they're going to lose all their farmland by urban development in our cities, where we look at trying to put the farms on the roofs, say let's reserve and preserve our farmland because we're going to need it for a healthy, thriving population. But even in villages, we're looking at the idea that in the next 5-year plan, the idea is to develop the villages in a way that people don't want to leave. And so we're looking at how to build sustainable housing, sustainable enterprises, grow fuels, develop new kinds of agriculture that allow people to stay and thrive on the villages instead of having to go to the cities. So I think China is very worried that with this massive migration, 700 million people in the villages, 700 to 800 million, of them, if 400 million go to the cities, they're afraid they won't find jobs in the future, and then we'll get slums. And if we get slums, we get social unrest. The other problem is, as the cities expand into the countryside, the farmers are concerned their land is being taken for the new development, and so there's civil unrest among the peasants. So any government formed by a peasant uprising has to get worried when the peasants are upset. So that's the part of the new model.
The Chinese Revolution has taken a new turn. The concept that waste can be food is understood by large countries and major companies. If the concept can only find its way to the consumer, then the revolution can begin.
We have the opportunity now. We have now smart designers, young scientists, and it's time just to reinvent everything. And everybody can do his own work. He can go to the supermarket and can say, hey, can I compost it? Can I burn it without a filter? Yeah. Or do you take it back? Yeah. And it's only, the society is so complex that everybody who does this generates so much momentum, yeah, to make changes that even 5% can make changes. I talked to Mikhail Gorbachev about perestroika and glasnost, yeah? And Mikhail Gorbachev said, look, we only had about 5% of the Communist Party, yeah? Everybody else didn't understand what we were doing. But 5% really understood this, and they made a change, yeah? And they could destroy the whole totalitarian regime. We don't have a totalitarian regime, we have democracy. We can do things, yeah? So it's not dangerous for us, yeah? We can just reinvent everything in a free society, yeah? And it's time to do this.